Be the hero of your videos using a very cool tool called Artflow in today's video. I'm so excited to talk about this tool. It's revolutionized how I create my thumbnails, which is a critical part of growing on LinkedIn, growing on YouTube, and a bunch of my other channels. It's really hard to come up with a great thumbnail image and then put that image together if you don't have a huge budget. A lot of the larger channels have amazing thumbnails that they spend a lot of money putting together. They have complicated shots with a photographer, multiple actors, special locations. Most of us can't do that. I don't have the time, and just putting together a second person to come and take the photos, a lot of us don't have that option. In the past, I used to take pictures right here and then crop them out for a blank PNG that I could then overlay in my thumbnails. And while that was okay, I often didn't have the pose that I wanted. When I'm shooting the pictures, I couldn't think of every pose I wanted. Sometimes the purple background would reflect on top of me, so I wouldn't look quite right when I removed the background. All sorts of issues getting that perfect. It's just as challenging. So I absolutely love Artflow because it allows me to look interesting, create dynamic photos, and try a lot of different poses very, very quickly. Most of YouTube is one in the thumbnail. When I have a good thumbnail, I get a lot more views, and a bad thumbnail, sometimes I only get a handful. It really makes a difference, and it's a major part of what started to draw attention to my channel. So I want to show you the exact process that I use to create images that look just like me, but just a little bit better. Let me show you exactly how I do it.
First way, at the beginnings of creating my thumbnails, my YouTube videos, it all starts with creating a character myself. If I'm going to be using an AI generated image of myself, I'm going to use a tool called Artflow. This is my favorite tool. This is the foundation for all of those images. What they have is a really cool process for creating consistent characters. I've created a character with my name, Jonathan Green. They have a bunch of demo public actors that you can use as well. If you don't want to use yourself, you can create an actor using anyone. You can upload. The process is very simple. I've covered this in another training, that you upload 20 pictures and they use that to create the actor. This is the only AI platform that's done a great job for this with my own image so far. I use this tool because no one else has been able to do this. And so I'm a huge fan. I did recently upgrade to the paid plan, but many of my thumbnails were created with the free plan. And we're going to talk about that first before we talk about if you need to upgrade. We have tons of actors here to give you a sense of what you're looking for. So they have different ethnicities, different ages, different nationalities. This is really what I use for my thumbnails. And that all happens in the Image Studio. This is the main tool that I use in Artflow. And you can see every single image I've ever made. You can start all the way at the beginning. When they first trained, they create 8 demo images. This is what happened after I uploaded the 15 images of myself. It generated pictures of me in an office. The other image they generated was these wizard pictures of me. What really matters is the style modifier. That's the absolute game changer. And it's going to make a real difference in the type of images you get. For a lot of these images, I use cinematic, which has a very specific look. You can see cowboy pictures of me. They don't look exactly like me. You would never think that's a photograph, and that's the intent. The desire is always to entertain, not to deceive. And that really goes into my methodology for all the images I create. I always look for things that are fun. Not every image makes it through. Sometimes it doesn't look quite right, or it looks very plastic, like these images. Here I'm talking into 2 microphones. The mouth is too big in these. It's grotesque. Factor that into your process. Not every image is going to work. This image was great for a sales page of me climbing for a specific angle. You can see Jonathan Green climbing a mountain, hanging from a cliff, view from above. This is not realistic. Look at my hand. That's not how you hold a cliff. That's how you have your hand if you want to fall off the cliff. You're always going to get slight unrealistic things with the hands, especially. Same thing here. There's no rope. My feet are not touching the mountain. I'm just holding with these 2 hands. If you're a real climber, you know you want to have at least 3 points of contact, probably 4 for a picture. But this is what the images look like. And this allows me to create really quick images. Here, someone's holding my hand. That makes more. They have carabiners on me. This looks a little more professional, but I'm still not tied to a rope. Very brave. And none of these am I connected to a rope. Here, I'm holding to a rope that seems to have nothing below me, and it's not attached to me. If you are using the free version, you can just right click and choose Save Image As. You are going to have the Artflow thing in the bottom. You're not supposed to do commercial use. You're supposed to do attribution for each level. I'm happy to agree. I love this tool. So I'm happy to tell everyone this is what I'm using for my images. It's not a problem for me. I'm not trying to pretend it's anything other than what it is. Now, let's go to some styles. Recently, I've been testing some different image styles, and you can see what happens pretty quickly when you test these styles? Here we have a horror style. I could tell just by looking, that's one of the horror ones. Horror does sometimes come out really good. Like this isn't a horror movie, it just has great lighting, great effects. The blue is very good. The sparks here are good. The fire in the background is cool. I do use this one quite a lot, and I'll show you a couple of the ones that I use. Let's generate an image. We have the kind of big picture idea. I click create new image. You can never control how many images it's going to make. It's always going to be four. You can choose if you want to use version 1 or version 2. I'm always going to use version 2, the better version. You have director mode. This is one of the most important elements. So I always turn this on. I always want my character on the right-hand side because I'm going to put the text in the top left. So knowing that I'm using this for a thumbnail causes me to do a slightly different process. So I always want 3:2, which is not exactly right because I really want 16:9. They don't offer that. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. Gives me this empty space where I can create the text that's going to go on the thumbnail. Element is using the prompt. So first thing is you want to add in your actor. So I'm going to click this, and the other way to activate is at Jonathan Green. If you forget what it is, you can do that. I don't need to do really complicated prompts because I want Artflow to have some creativity. The next part is you can say exclude from image anything that you don't want. I don't personally do a lot here. I tend to focus on what I add in. And if it's off, I just regenerate. I haven't found a really need to use this. Cinematic is the standard version. So we're going to click generate. The one thing you will notice is that the time of day makes a huge difference. It's daytime for me right now, which means it's middle of the night for most of America. So the image generation is faster. When I'm working at my nighttime and it's America's daytime, the image generation can take up to 3 minutes with the free version. With the paid version, it tends to be a little bit faster, but I still am doing some waiting. We now have our first batch of images. Let's take a closer look. With cinematic, you get a closer to realistic image that's right at the edge of the uncanny valley. It doesn't quite look weird, but there's an issue with the fingers here. This is as close to realistic as I like to get. This is a great image. I'm a little too close to the center of the picture, so I would need to move me to the side really to make this more usable. There's not as much space, or I'll have to do a smaller text element here. Perfect. I'm right where I want to be, but of course the explosion's over there. I'm not sure that's a submarine. That looks more like a boat or ship. This is another great one. This one's pretty close to perfect because you have me here, bright image here. So I can have the flow of the image going towards me and the text over here. This is very usable. You can go and make variants, but I tend to play around in a different way. Let me show you. The most important element is add style. The one problem is these dog demo images are not very useful. They don't look different enough to let you know what you're going to get. So I encourage you the first time you test this tool after you've trained your actors to make an image with each different style to know what you like and don't like. I know for a fact I hate pop art. It always comes out bad. It makes me look like a weird old man. I don't know if they're using a picture of a real guy because it's always the same guy. It looks nothing like me. So I don't use that style. You can try Salvadore Dali, you can try Paul Gauguin, Hieronymus Bosch. I can't really tell from the drawings of the dog that this is a Bosch. These aren't going to help you. So you have to create your own training set to see what's going to happen. And let's just do a Salvadore Dali and generate. We can see now the influence of Salvadore Dali. We don't have the melting clocks look, which of course is Dali's most famous painting, but we get a completely different image. This is not something I would use for a thumbnail because it doesn't match my aesthetic, but pretty cool. You'll notice the character's in the wrong position. I believe that it deactivated director mode. So you have to be aware of this. That's a mistake I made, that you have to flip it back on when you change style. So we're going to do another image. Let's turn director mode back on. Now we add our style. And we're going to try Cubism. So we have director mode on. We have Cubism. You can merge styles. Before we merge styles, we want to find a style we like, and then we're going to add a merge and see what happens. I find that I tend to like just one style, but I will show you some cool recipes. Let's try Cubism just to get a sense of what's possible. And I hope you're starting to see that this tool is a lot more powerful than it seems. Now we have our image with Cubism. Having director mode on has pushed the character to the right-hand side, has a really cool aesthetic. It doesn't look like me, We've lost that element because we pushed into Cubism. It's become more dominant. This gives you a sense of what's possible and to see what you can do with your creations. Now, let me go to how I create my actual thumbnails. The styles I tend to work with are fantasy and horror and sci-fi. Those are the ones I play with the most. Neon punk never works out for me. Anime and 3D anime don't look enough like me when I test them to work out, but I know they're constantly updating this tool. Let's give anime a style and just see how it works. We're going to turn off Cubism and we have director mode on. We have the character. We're going to hit generate. The good thing about Artflow is they're very generous. You get 100 generations, 400 images per month. I upgraded to Pro, not because I was ever running out of generations or running out of credits. I never got close, but just because I want to support the tool because I love it. And I wanted my generation to be a little bit faster. The one limitation of Artflow is that you can only run one set of generations at a time. Unlike Midjourney, where I could have 3 running and 7 more in the queue, just this one, I have to wait for this to finish before I make the next image, which is why you want to be a little more strategic with your style choices, just because you have this limitation. Here's the anime style. You have an additional character here. This sometimes happens when there's a little bit of drift. This is a great anime image. It doesn't look that much like me. So some of the prompts, it doesn't lock in. Like this character has blonde hair, which I obviously don't. This is closer. I could say to myself, oh, that kind of looks like me. This submarine looks like it's shooting a laser out of it. It's very cool. This is a great image. This is something I would use for a thumbnail if I wanted to create this style or this aesthetics. I like what I'm getting here. And let's look at the 4th image. This character got crossed eyes. It doesn't match the anime aesthetic. And it looks like we have one boat crashing into another, but we're starting to see what the anime looks like. I'm going to add style. Most of the time, I'm either using fantasy or horror or science fiction. So let's go to science fiction. We're going to turn off anime and generate our next image. Here's what we get with the science fiction style. It doesn't push it too far into the future. This is not 1,000 years in the future. This is just a cooler style. I don't know why this is called science fiction, to be honest with you, because it just looks cool. It doesn't go too crazy. It has no, here I'm being blown up by the explosion. This is a great image. This is something I would use. I think this is really wonderful because it has great lines, great colors. It is putting me in running clothes. In this case, I think that's how it's interpreting running. So you can modify the outfit I'm wearing. Jonathan Green wearing something, doing this. I have done, if you've seen some of my thumbnails, have me in a tuxedo. I just want to show you what happens when we merge styles. This is what science fiction looks like. Let's see what happens when I merge science fiction and cinematic to see what happens when we start with a recipe. We've merged cinematic with science fiction to get a slightly different style aesthetic. These images are darker. There's more of a merging of me with the background. This one is working. I tend to be inside the submarine in this batch. These are not bad. Now we're drifting the air personal taste. I prefer to use just science fiction or just cinematic. Merging them together doesn't make a huge difference in my opinion, but let me know if I'm missing something. What do you think? Does creating recipes create something really cool? Let's try adding one more style. Let's just go absolutely crazy and do 3 styles. So we're going to stay in director mode. I'm trying to keep myself in the bottom corner and I'm going to add the other style. I really tend to get a good result from horror, which I didn't expect. Let me show you what that looks like. We're now doing science fiction plus cinematic plus horror, 3 ingredients in a recipe. And then after this, I'll show you what horror looks like on its own. The big horror element, you can look at the expression on the face. There's a little bit more of what's going on here. Something bad is happening. It's more of a horror expression. That's the biggest revelation here. Pretty interesting image. It's too dark and this is too scary. It's gone too far down the rabbit hole. I find that mixing and creating recipes doesn't work as well for me. What I'm going to do is pull out those elements, just leave horror by itself and show you how that's different and actually very interestingly usable. This is what happens when we use just horror. I think this looks very cinematic. The coloration is great. I have plenty of room to add the text to the thumbnail. The expression on the face catches your attention. If you want to run a variant and change the facial expression, you can. And every batch, there's one that I would use. This one is great. It's so interesting because it's not quite realistic. I'm running above the water, but it's very interesting. And that catches your eye. You go, what's going on there? I love that type of element. This is really the first part of the process. This one has 2 images of me, so it's not useful. because we want one character, not two, but golly, it looks great. This is another great horror image. So I want you to see that even though it's called horror, it tends to generate really good results. So this is one of my secret weapons. It's probably the variant I'm using the most right now because I really like the result it's getting for me. And this is my process for generating images of me that look really cool.
So that's the process that I use for coming up with the thumbnail background images that I use in the majority of the thumbnails you see on the channel, including the one you saw at the beginning of this video. It must have worked because you wouldn't have come to see this video if the thumbnail wasn't interesting enough. It's a major part of the battle, and this is absolutely my favorite tool. I'm a huge fan of what's possible with Midjourney. I use it to create a lot of my thumbnails, which I'm going to show in another video. But if I want my image in it, there's no tool that works as good as Artflow. It's the best tool that's the easiest to use at a reasonable price. The fact that you get 100 images every single month for free, that's crazy generous. And I really love this tool. But the most important thing is what you think. Did you find these images interesting? Did you find this video useful? If so, please hit the like button. That's how this channel grows. We're on the path to hitting 2,000 subscribers, which is very exciting. If you leave a comment, it means a huge difference to me because I read it and reply to every single comment. That's the value of a smaller channel. I don't have a huge following yet, which means I have the time to read and respond to all the comments. Now is the time to connect with me. And if you hit the subscribe button, you'll see more of my content in your feed every time you're hanging out on YouTube. If you hit the bell button, you'll get notified every single time I post a video. Those actions make a huge difference for a smaller channel, and they make the difference between my channel growing and my channel stagnating. I really want you to know that I care a lot about your opinion. I want to make great videos for you, and I put a lot of effort into this video. I've been reinvigorated and dedicated myself to constantly trying to make better and better videos. If I think a video is just okay, I'm not going to publish it anymore. I have to strive for excellence. That's part of my mission, and your feedback, well, it helps me to stay encouraged. So thank you so much for staying all the way to the end. I'd love to know what you think of Artflow. Is it good enough? Do you like these types of images? Are they interesting? Or do you like something a little simpler? Do you want me to go back to the old style where it's a picture of me posing with white lines around my skin? What did you find the most interesting? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for staying all the way to the end. See you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching one of my videos. Hit the like button, and then I've got a couple of sweet videos that I think you're gonna like. I've got one here and another one over here. You're gonna love them.